Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin on this Friday of Passover. Mark and his incredible wife, Julie, and their incredible family celebrating this solemn and joyful occasion that we Christians also acknowledge and find incredibly wonderful, too. Passover is a delightful time, and I'm sure that Mark and his family are going to make the most of it, this significant Passover this year. And I hope that you all do the same as we Christians also head into Holy Week with Palm Sunday. I love it when the Jewish holy days intersect and overlap with our Christian holidays. It makes it that much more meaningful, that much more significant. So a joyous one to one and all. I'm Larry O'Connor, radio talk show host, podcaster, streamer, author. I'm on WMAL in Washington, D.C. That's Mark Levin's home station as well, as he calls Northern Virginia his home. I'm his morning show. And I'm glad that you are sticking with us tonight on a very busy and monumental week in American politics and pop culture. And we're going to hit all of those things, as well as a look-see internationally on what's going on around the world as the Trump administration sits with the mullahs of Iran tomorrow for what's being discussed as a disconcerting negotiation. I don't know why we're negotiating with them necessarily, but I do like to see how these things play out. One thing I hope we've learned now over the years is to not second guess or underestimate the initial strategy of one Donald J. Trump. So I will stay cautiously optimistic and skeptical all at the same time. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. And of course, I do want to talk to you at 877-381-3811. A couple of quick plugs for me. You can get all the information that I do, my radio podcasts, my streaming show that I do at Town Hall, a video podcast, information about my book, Shameless Liars, all about the American media and how they covered the last presidential election. Just go to LarryVIP.com. That's simple. LarryVIP.com. Everything's there. LarryVIP.com. You'll find the YouTube channel. You'll find the radio station. All of it. LarryVIP.com. One other quickie. This weekend, Life, Liberty, and Levin. Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser are going to join Mark Levin on Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday, 8 p.m. Make sure you tune in and watch at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. I want to play for you some breaking news here as Fox News delivered the information to their myriad viewers, their huge number of viewers, their overwhelming, dominant number of viewers. Funny how that works, isn't it? Here's the news. We'll talk about the item, but then we'll talk about the bigger picture issue at play here as you hear Fox News' Martha McCallum just moments ago.
The decision that we have been waiting for. A judge has just ruled that the Trump administration's effort to deport Mahmoud Khalil can move forward. Correspondent Brooke Taylor, live right near that courthouse in Jena, Louisiana. Tell us what the judge is saying in there, Brooke.
Hi, Martha. Yeah, this has been long anticipated and some major news. Just to first give you some perspective, we're down the street from that ICE detention center. The courtroom is inside of there. They didn't allow any phones or cameras. So we're finding out this information from our reporter who's over there down the street. She tells us, as you just mentioned, the immigration judge has found Mahmoud Khalil removable. Khalil's attorneys have until April 23rd to file relief applications. I asked that reporter what the immigration judge was able to say. She cited those DHS papers and said that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was able to meet that burden. And again, they have decided that Mahmoud Khalil is removable. The next question, Martha, of course, his attorneys are going to fight this, but how long that process is going to take right now for him to be deported. We'll send it back to you.
All right. Breaking news. Brooke, thank you.
Breaking news, and it was just about an hour and a half ago when it broke. Mahmoud Khalil, the person who entered this country on a student visa, lied on that student visa, became a political activist operating and giving aid and assistance to a terrorist organization, and undermined the efforts of the United States of America and her allies, obviously subject to deportation. Based on that and that alone, judge tried to hold it up, and now a judge today has given the green light for his deportation. Now, big news. Big news. And I'm glad we were able to share it with you. Now, as we do in talk radio, we tell you the headlines and then we pull back and we give analysis. Because here's the big story, the really big story that I want to talk about with regard to this issue. If you're a regular listener to this program, if you listen to the Mark Levin show, or if you listen to the other shows that I'm guessing you hear on a regular basis on this, your favorite talk radio station, which of course means it's your favorite radio station in general. If you're a regular here, this was not news to you. This was not news. You knew this. If you just listen to Mark Levin, which honestly, if you can only listen to one show, you listen to the Mark Levin show. I'm saying that as a radio host myself. If you listen to Mark Levin, you knew that this was the law. You knew the reality of immigration law in this country. You knew the reality. This has nothing to do with legal or illegal. It has nothing to do with breaking the law and having due process and breaking federal law or being a violent criminal. All of those reasons are reasons for deportation as well. But if you listen to Mark Levin's show, you know that even a legal resident in this country who undermines the United States of America acts in a way that is subversive to the foreign policy, national security interests of this country or her allies. Even a legal resident, a green card holder, is subject to deportation. Anyone who's gone through the legal immigration process, if they actually read the forms that they signed to obtain their green card, they'll tell you that. You don't need to be convicted. You don't even know. The Secretary of State or the Department of Homeland Security or the president himself can say, yeah, no, you're not welcome here anymore. You were our guest. And you have a guest over at your home. It's like, sure, you can come on in. First of all, I'd like to know who you are. You know, the Democrats, liberals, ACLU, United Nations, all the other international non-government organizations that apparently we've been funding through USAID and our tax dollars, they don't even think people have the obligation to check in when they enter this country, even let you know they're here or let you know who they are or why they're here. That's free for all. No other country operates that way. But no, our actual laws are that when you come into this country, when we let you in as our guest, as Mahmoud Khalil was allowed in, there are certain conditions. And by the way, you also have to attest to certain things and swear that it is true and honest and correct when you sign those forms. Mahmoud Khalil, it appears, violated much of those provisions, many of those provisions. And he utilized our great welcoming nature in allowing him into this country, allowing him to go to an Ivy League school to get a higher education, allowing him to be here when we didn't have to. And he turned around and undermined this country. He turned around and advocated for a terrorist organization that has murdered and held hostage American citizens and the citizens of one of our closest allies. You knew that Mahmoud Khalil was subject for deportation. You knew that the law was on the Trump administration's side, and you knew that this is how the ruling would go. You knew that because you listened to this show and because you listened to this radio station. Now, I want to expand on this even further because I think that's the bigger story here. As my friend and mentor, the dearly departed, and Lord how we miss him, Andrew Breitbart, would always tell me when I worked for him, every story is ultimately a media story. How is this a media story? Well, if you don't get your news and information from this show and this radio station, you heard hand-wringing for the last month over this guy. You heard people screaming constitutional crisis. You heard people screaming authoritarianship. You heard people screaming dictatorship, racism, right? Oh, this guy got plucked away. He deserves due process. You can't just take somebody who's a legal resident of the country and deport them. That's xenophobic. That's racist. You're only doing it because he's Muslim and from the Middle East. You're only doing this because he sided with Hamas, which, by the way, yeah. You can't do this. This is outrageous. This is disgraceful. This is disgusting. This is not the United States of America. This is not who we are. That's what you hear everywhere else. And you heard panel discussions on these cable news stations, fair and balanced panel discussions. You know the ones I'm talking about, where it's 5-1, where one person is sitting there saying, no, actually, this is completely legal. And everyone else starts screaming at them and calling them names. We deserve a better media in this country. We deserve a smarter media in this country. We deserve a media who actually adheres to the original intention of the First Amendment, which is to inform and educate and enlighten the citizenry of this country. That's why the First Amendment's there. That's why the free speech element of the First Amendment is there. Madison knew that. We can't have this whole freedom thing and democratic process to choose our representatives in this constitutional republic unless we have a free, unfettered press that is not manipulated by political interests, corporate interests, or, God forbid, the government itself. We don't have that now. We don't have anything close to that. You know, if you started the week watching other television outlets, other programs, publicly funded radio, you probably thought that we were facing the next Great Depression. You probably thought that we were in the middle of a trade war. It was the United States against every country on the planet. You probably thought that every single good and item that you purchased that isn't manufactured in the United States was going to triple in cost, and that your 401k was going to go so down the sewer that you were not going to be able to retire. But not if you listen to this show. Not if you listened, I'm guessing, to the other shows on this radio station. Probably most of the hosts. I know Mark kept his head about him. I know that Mark Levin recognized that all of this tariff talk was ultimately about China, that this wasn't a question of free trade. This was a question of China cheating from day one, and every country on the planet knows it. But because the geniuses 30 years ago decided to put them in the World Trade Organization, if you want to go after China for their cheating, well, they're protected by all of these upteen hoops that you have to jump through and appeals processes you have to go through over the course of years through the World Trade Organization. And the only way to actually get after China from Trump's perspective was to declare an emergency trade situation in this nation where tariffs had to be levied on all the countries. And then the Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Bessent, who really comported himself well over the last 10 days, said to the world, don't retaliate. Don't retaliate. Don't retaliate. 50, 60, 70 countries reached out, said, hey, we're not going to retaliate. Let's work this out. That's good. What did China do? China blinked. China blinked. China retaliated. Trump pushed back. China retaliated again, and then Trump said, okay, that's it. We're going to pause this thing for 90 days. We'll keep everyone's tariffs just down at a bare minimum 10% while we negotiate with all these other countries. But you, China, come here, China, come here. The hell are you thinking, China? I thought we were friends. I thought you were smart, but you're not smart. What did you do? You retaliated. We told you. You did the one thing we told you not to do. So now It's down to us, China, which is where this all began in the first place. This was always about China, and if you get your news and information from any well-sourced and intelligent individual and outlet, you knew that, and you didn't panic, and you didn't sell everything when it was all in the toilet and then have to try to buy everything back when it was starting to soar again. You knew that this was ultimately all about China, and this is the process to get it down to U.S. versus China, because China screwed up. China retaliated, and now the World Trade Organization has nothing to say about it. Now it's just one country after another, and now we can make this happen, because this is ultimately what needs to happen. It should have happened 20 years ago. But see, the point is, where you get your news and information matters. Where you get your analysis matters. Where you get informed about what's happening in this country, in Washington, D.C., the town I'm in right now. What happens with this presidency, one of the most historic presidencies already that we have lived through, and it's only 75 days in. Where you get that news, information, and analysis matters. And one other item on this. I love podcasts. I do my own podcast. It's called Larry Town Hall. It's a video show. We stream it at noon every day. I get my analysis from certain podcasts. Some are better than others. You know, the podcast landscape is the wild, wild west. Anybody can have a podcast, literally. I mean, and they do. Radio is a little different. And I just want to say something. I love broadcasting. I love talk radio. I love the radio station you're on right now. I started out as a podcaster 14 years ago for Andrew Breitbart, but I wanted to be on the radio. I chose to be on the radio. I begged to be on the radio, and I love being on the radio because the bar is higher here. Not everyone can be on the radio, whereas anyone can, in fact, get a podcast. And I saw some podcasters, some of my fellow conservatives who I agree with on a lot of different things. I saw some podcasters earlier this week who didn't understand this trade thing, didn't understand the markets. They were saying stuff like, oh, what do you care if you lost money? It's only numbers on a piece of paper.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our founding fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin, 877-381-3811. Just want to tidy up my last thought here, and then we'll move on to some other breaking news topics. Again, love me some podcasts. Got my own podcast. It's great. Guys, stick with talk radio. My whole point here about you being better informed than the people who are reading teleprompters on a set of a cable news network right now is because the bar is higher on radio. All right. And we don't panic. We don't freak out. We don't run around with our hair on fire and say, oh, my gosh, the market is going to crash. We also don't like, and some friends of mine have these podcasts where they were saying, oh, if you lose money in the market, you shouldn't care about that. That's not what's important. Yeah. Tell that to my mother, who's 72 years old and on a fixed income. Choose wisely where you get your information. That's why you're here on the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry O'Connor. We got more to come next.
Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
It's your daily adult dosage of the Constitution. The Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin. Mark Levin is honoring the Passover holiday this weekend. That's why I'm lucky enough to sit in for him. By the way, Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser will join Mark on Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Make sure you check that out. Also, Charles Payne and retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton join Mark Levin on Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday at 8 p.m. So check those out as well. Life, Liberty, and Levin. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can get all of the information. I do a ton of things, including talk radio in Washington, D.C. Radio's where it's at. Go to LarryVIP.com. So here's an interesting story. Here's a story that you haven't seen anywhere. I guarantee you have not seen this story anywhere, and that's why you're listening right now. Democrats, it appears, over the last 24 hours, have come out against Social Security, Medicare, federal student aid, the SNAP program, food stamps that is, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, the TAMF program, federal housing, and veterans benefits. See, I told you hadn't heard that story. Well, I mean, let me explain. I'm sure you've seen that the House of Representatives, led by Republicans and Speaker Mike Johnson, passed a bill sponsored by Congressman Chip Roy of Texas called the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act. You saw that, right? The SAVE Act, it's a modest proposal. I don't know why anyone would vote against it. The SAVE Act requires proof of citizenship to register to vote. Now, Democrats are against this. And Democrats have a fascinating talking point that they're using as to why they're against it. We'll get to it in a moment. But let me cut through the noise for you. All right. Let me just, because they're distracting you with, this is going to affect women and people of color and married women can't get proof of citizenship, which is news to me and probably most married women in this country. You're going to hear all of that. May I just for a moment cut through the noise and tell you exactly what the Democrats' position is? Here's the Democrats' position. Democrats do not want proof of citizenship for voting. That's all you need to know. The rest, everything else you're hearing is noise. Repeat after me. Democrats do not want proof of citizenship for voting. I know this because they all just voted against it. Now, their big talking point that they're trotting out there, which, by the way, has the benefit of being a lie, as most Democrat talking points are, it appears, their talking point is in how you prove your citizenship. Well, how are people supposed to prove their citizenship? Not everybody has a passport. And not everyone has access to their birth certificate. And here's my favorite one, because it infantilizes women. Because Ladies, you're going to love this. If a woman got married and they changed their name, well, their ID is not going to match their birth certificate, so they won't be able to vote. This is how stupid they think you are. This is how helpless they think you are. Yeah, actually, let me rephrase that. They either think you're so stupid that a married woman doesn't know how to prove her citizenship, even though they've been having to do that for, I don't know, a couple hundred years now. Or they think you're so stupid that you'll believe that argument, that you'll hear that argument and think, oh, yeah, that does sound bad. Yeah, those damn misogynistic Republicans. It's terrible. So Democrats do not want proof of citizenship to vote, which I think is kind of bad. I think that's kind of damning for Democrats, don't you? I think most Americans, when you say, do you think you should prove you're a citizen before you can vote? I think most Americans will say, well, of course. In fact, why do we even need a new law that states that? And that's a damn good question. But here's the most important thing. All those other programs I just laid out there, what do they all have in common? See, Democrats don't want proof of citizenship to vote. But here's the problem. Social Security, right now, anyone out there getting Social Security or in line to get Social Security, including all you married women who may have changed their name and took their husband's name, you need to prove your citizenship. You need to prove your U.S. citizenship with a birth certificate or a passport to get that Social Security. How about Medicare? You betcha. You want Medicare benefits? Well, you have to prove your citizenship. Now, how in the hell did Democrats vote for Social Security and Medicare benefits over the decades, knowing that so many people would not be able to get those benefits because they have to prove their citizenship? How about federal student aid? They love their federal student aid. They love their federal student loans. They want to forgive all their student loans, even when the Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional. Guess what? You need to show your proof of citizenship to get your federal student aid. In fact, schools often check with the Department of Homeland Security for verification. Yeah. How about that? SNAP, that would be food stamps. Yeah, for food stamps, you have to prove you're a U.S. citizen. Birth certificate or passport. There are some eligible non-citizens. They got to show their I-551 or their I-94. I thought I-94 was an expressway, but that's because I'm not a podcaster. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible because guess what? Undocumented immigrants don't have documents, and you need a document to prove you're a citizen. Medicaid, of course you need to prove you're a citizen for Medicaid. Unemployment insurance, believe it or not, you have to prove you're a citizen. Now, there are non-citizens who are legal residents. They have green cards. They have different forms that they have to show if they've worked and they've earned enough credits for unemployment insurance. But yeah, they have to prove that too. Federal housing, of course, Section 8 housing does not get handed over to anybody who's eligible unless they have proof of citizenship. Now, in that case, only one household member has to be a citizen, but they've got to prove it. Even a married woman has to prove it, even if they change their name. Veterans benefits, you can be a non-citizen and be in the military. For those veterans benefits, though, you have to prove you're either a lawful resident or a citizen. Most federal benefits, nearly all federal benefits, require proof of citizenship. Democrats voted against the SAVE Act, which requires proof of citizenship to vote. They voted for all those other programs that I just laid out for you. And they seemed to be just fine with those programs requiring proof of citizenship. Well, unless they're super consistent here and they now oppose those programs because of the draconian demands for citizenship identification proof. to receive those benefits. Maybe they're stupid. Maybe they didn't know that all of those federal programs I just detailed for you require proof of citizenship. So I'm guessing Democrats now oppose those programs, or maybe want to rewrite the laws because it would be discriminatory, especially to those married women who are so helpless and stupid, according to Democrats. You think about this. You think about all of the benefits that I just laid out there, which make up, about 75% of our federal budget. And all of those benefits that Democrats love to champion. All of those benefits require proof of citizenship, and Democrats have been fine with that. They've never complained. They've never voted against it or anything. But now suddenly, the one thing they're screaming bloody murder about, the one thing that they stood shoulder to, I think 4 Democrats in the House voted for proof of citizenship to vote. But all the other Democrats lined up against it, and then sent out their talking points and sent out all of their spokespeople and representatives and surrogates all over the media screaming about this, saying, oh, this is discriminatory, this is wrong, this is bad. Oh, they did a full court press today about this. The one benefit that they refuse to require proof of citizenship is the vote. Why would that be? That's mind-boggling, isn't it? I can't quite figure it out. Why would that be the one thing they want to make available to people who don't prove that they're citizens of the United States of America? I mean, you hear that, and one would almost think that they're relying on non-citizens to vote. The propaganda on this has been shameless. And by the way, I just said that they put out their talking points and they sent out their surrogates and their spokespeople and all the champions of the cause. Actually, I shouldn't stop there. Here is the reporter for CNN. This is a paid journalist for CNN talking about this vote and this issue.
It's more about why this bill is raising these alarm bells among Democrats and voting rights groups.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 separate issues. The first is the fact that there's very little evidence that non-citizens are voting regularly in elections. And when they sometimes do, those are largely seen as errors and judgment and really not some kind of concerted effort to try to rig an election. So
an error in judgment. But I'm going to use that one next time I break a federal law. When non-citizens do vote, it's really just seen as an error in judgment. It's not a concerted effort to break the law. But you know what? Hey, everybody, I got an idea. You didn't get it from me. Please don't blame me for this one. But try this one for the IRS. The IRS comes knocking. They call you in. They got questions about your return. Just say, oh, that was just an error in judgment. Like being a non-citizen and voting. Just an error in judgment. Give me a break.
That's the first thing that voting rights groups are pointing out. The other issue is that you have to prove that you're a citizen of the United States. And the way that you do that is perhaps you can show a real ID that shows you're a citizen, but not every state's real ID has some marker that shows that you are a citizen of the United States. That means perhaps you would have a passport. Half of Americans don't have a passport. There's also a question about if you have an ID that does not show that you were born in the United States, then you can use your birth certificate. But if you are a woman who has changed your name, perhaps after you got married, your birth certificate may not match your ID. So there are these hurdles that exist for people, a burden of proof that exists for people to try to go and register for voting. And
that's not news, and that's not reporting. That's propaganda. That was not a Democrat congressperson. That was not a spokesperson for some activist organization. That was Lauren Fox, CNN congressional correspondent, dutifully repeating her memorized talking points from all of those activist groups and the Democrat Party. And that's what CNN has become. And let me just bottom line it for you one more time. You need proof of citizenship for everything the federal government doles out. Democrats have held the line on this thing. voting. Not because of discrimination, not because of hurdles, not because of married women not being able to prove that they're citizens. Democrats are against proof of citizenship for voting. Period. End of story. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our founding fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, 877-381-3811. I had a lot on my mind here. I will take your calls, I promise, coming up in a little bit. I left out one thing. That list, by the way, I just put together an exhaustive list of federal benefits that require proof of citizenship because Democrats are lying to you. Democrats are claiming that they're trying to champion the downtrodden and the disaffected and the hurdles that everybody has to jump through to be able to prove their citizenship, especially obscenely, insultingly. They point to married women who they didn't change their birth certificate, as if married women in this day and age in 2025 America haven't figured out how to deal with their married name and proof of citizenship. How on earth have you helpless women gotten all of these other federal benefits, your student aid, your Social Security, your welfare, you did all of this? How did you do this up until now without Eric Swalwell helping you? I wouldn't let that guy near you to help with anything, by the way, unless maybe to order a good meal at a Chinese restaurant. I left out one thing. I left out one benefit. And I'm already getting people coming at me on social media. I have posted this list on my X account. It's Larry O'Connor. I am in the process of formatting it for Facebook. Now it will be on my Facebook, the Larry O'Connor on Facebook. If you're looking for the Instagram, I'm not a 14-year-old girl. I don't know what's going on there. I left out one thing. I gave you Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and veterans benefits and SNAP, the food stamps program, and student aid, and all that stuff. There's one other thing. How about getting a job? You know, for the last 30 years in this country, it's been a federal law that if you get a job, you have to fill out an I-9 form. What's an I-9 form? An I-9 form is proof of citizenship, where you have to show a certain types of identification. If you got a passport, that's all you need. You don't have a passport, you don't have access to your birth certificate, there's other forms of documentation that you can show, multiple ones that your employer is supposed to check to prove you're a citizen. Democrats voted for that law. If you want a job in the United States of America, you have to prove you're a citizen or you have to prove you're a legal resident with a green card. Now, I know Democrats don't respect these laws. I know that they want to give all of these things to illegal immigrants because they think that helps build their base, and I guess that works in California. But what about getting a job? How on earth could every single beautiful haircut that reads a teleprompter on cable news tonight, because that's really their skill set. I don't want to call them journalists or news hosts or reporters. They're They're people with good haircuts who have a skill to read a teleprompter. When you're interviewing the screaming Democrat, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, I don't care who it is, and they say that married women are going to have a problem and they're not going to be able to vote because they took their husband's name and now they can't prove they're citizens. Could you please lean in and say, are you telling me that married women have been unable to work in this country since you voted to make the I-9 form a federal law? Are you telling me that married women can't get all of these other benefits that Larry O'Connor just talked about on the Mark Levin show? Could just one of those haircuts that reads a teleprompter lean in and ask that question? No, I was afraid you'd say that. Of course they can't. But again, you know, because you're listening. I'm Larry O'Connor. More to come on the Mark Levin Show.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Larry O'Connor is sitting in for Mark Levin. Mark Levin and his family, his incredible wife Julie, and the entire family and extended family, they are beginning their Passover observance tonight. God bless them, and God bless all of the people of the Jewish faith who are doing the same. And also my Christian brothers and sisters. We got Palm Sunday coming up this Sunday, and then we embark on Holy Week. And boy, oh boy, what a time it's been. And my heart is with you as you round out your Lent. I had some fine fish and chips today. It's almost over, and he will be risen. So we got all of our Judeo-Christian holidays overlapping right now, which is always my favorite thing when the lunar calendar and the Christian calendar all match up. It's beautiful. So a good one for Mark Levin. By the way, tune into Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's got Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser as guests for Mark. And then on Friday, the great Charles Payne and the great retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton will be joining. Everybody's great on the Mark Levin Show. I, on the other hand, I'm a talk radio host out of Washington, D.C., WMAL, the home station for Mark Levin. You can get all my information over at LarryVIP.com. You'll get radio show, podcast, video streaming, and my book. My book is called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It's all about the media's coverage of the 2024 presidential election and how they don't matter anymore. How Trump beat them all. And I think you'll love this book. It's at Amazon, Shameless Liars. Follow me on X, and it's got all the information. Thank you for being a part of our show tonight. Hour 2 here as we embark on, again, try to cut through the misinformation that you get out there in the mainstream media and give you some facts and analysis. We just broke down all the lies the Democrats are telling about the SAVE Act. This whole, married women can't vote. How will they be able to prove they're citizens? The infantilization of women in this country. How do they get the women to vote for them at all the way they treat women? It's despicable. How they reduce women down to nothing more than, a woman who wants to have the opportunity to kill the unborn baby in her womb. I think women are more than that. The fact that they can't even define what a woman is, the fact that they believe that a man who has a surgical procedure that gives them fake breasts suddenly makes them a woman. Boy, there was a time in this country where if a politician reduced the definition of a woman to just their pair of breasts and whether they're able to acquire a pair of breasts or not, there would be a name for that kind of politician. Now we just call them Democrats. I mean, listen, it's not my party. If this is the route they want to go, let them. Listen, what we like to do here on this program, and hopefully on all of the radio shows on this, your favorite talk radio station that you're listening to, is to deliver news that you're not getting elsewhere and give you analysis and context that you don't get elsewhere. And what is a beautiful thing about this format, The fact that we have time to sort of unpack stories, unlike cable news where you got to move every 3.5 minutes, you got to move to another topic. That's why Life, Liberty, and Levin is such a great cable show, because Mark has the freedom to be able to say to Fox, yeah, okay, I'll do a show for you, but I want to do it my way. I want to do my show. And it's great, right? Well, I want to take a moment to cover today's press briefing in a way that you probably don't see the press briefings covered. If you're watching cable news, even some of the good guys out there, and there are a couple of good cable news networks out there, I don't play favorites. Even they will just grab the same soundbite from Karoline Leavitt, the same one that MSNBC has and CNN and George Snuffleupagus and all these other people. They'll play the one thing that you have to take away. He's like, Karoline Leavitt goes up there and speaks on behalf of the Trump administration and all these things and takes all these questions for like an hour and a half. And you're supposed to be informed by just getting the one snippet, the one bite. My colleagues over at Town Hall Media put together a great string of videos today showing you a comprehensive look at Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in our history. And I want to break this down for you as well and play for you much of today's briefing and things that you're not going to get elsewhere because the other stations are propagandists or they're lazy. Could be both. Here's Karoline Leavitt talking about the transparency of the Trump administration, especially compared to his predecessor.
Everybody in this room has access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. The cabinet meeting yesterday was further proof. President Trump asked each secretary to provide an update to all of you in the media on the critical work they are doing at their respective agencies to deliver on his agenda. And according to new reporting from the Washington Times, who I believe is in this room today, President Trump answered nearly 100 questions from the press, all of you, during his first 3 open press cabinet meetings this year. That's nearly 20 times the number answered by Joe Biden in cabinet meetings during his entire 4 years in office.
Now, to be fair to Joe Biden and his cabinet meetings, most of them were chaired by the First Lady, Jill Biden. So you can't really fault Joe. Did he even do any cabinet meetings? Like one a year or something? Isn't it? There's been 3 cabinet meetings already that the press has been able to sort of peek into at the beginning in just 3 months, less than 3 months of this presidency. It's astounding. Karoline Leavitt also talked about the inflation numbers that just hit yesterday and another round today as well. Probably didn't hear this on your cable news station.
In more excellent economic news that was released yesterday, the Consumer Price Index report showed inflation fell to 2.4% in March, smashing expectations for the second straight month in a row. This marked the first drop in consumer prices dating all the way back to the COVID pandemic. Prescription drug prices saw the largest monthly decline on record. Prices for airfare, used vehicles, and car insurance all decreased as well. And energy prices fell 2.4% in March, driven by plummeting gas prices around the country.
By the way, if you really care about Putin and Russia's illegal and deadly bloody incursion into Ukraine, if you think that that's the biggest story of our times, if you're one of those war-loving never-Trumpers who had their hair on fire and couldn't possibly support Donald Trump because he didn't bend on his knees and promise to give the Ukrainian military everything that they wanted because he dared to actually say, maybe we can reach peace here. If you think that the Ukraine war is the biggest story that we need to focus on, you should be celebrating this president more than anyone else on the planet right now. That data point right there about the drop in energy prices and oil prices worldwide. The lowest price of oil on the planet in over 4 years. That's what ends the war in Ukraine. That's what stops the tanks rolling. This entire war effort was funded by the soaring oil prices. That's the only money that Vladimir Putin can make. And he does. If Biden hadn't shut off our energy independence on day one and shot oil prices up across the planet, and if he had not allowed Western Europe to turn course and negotiate oil and gas deals with Russia, which makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, as you're saying that Vladimir Putin is the next Hitler, If he hadn't done those two things, the tanks wouldn't have been able to roll because he wouldn't have been able to pay for the tanks or the people who drive them. But, you know, I don't want to distract you with facts here. After all, we don't have enough time for that. We've got to go to our panel discussion next. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was hosting a cable news show for a second there. All right. What about tariffs, though? What about tariffs, Karoline Leavitt? You got a terrible week in tariffs. I know it for a fact. Jim Cramer told me so.
More than 75 countries have now reached out to the Trump administration, eager to address the trade issues that have exploited America and hurt our workers in the process. The phones have been ringing off the hook to make deals, and these countries wisely heeded President Trump's warning not to retaliate, and as a result, they were rewarded with a 90-day pause and substantially lower reciprocal tariff rates during this period so potential solutions can be achieved. Past presidents just willingly accepted the failed status quo on trade that ripped off our workers and our companies. But that's not who this president is. He creates his own leverage and negotiates deals better than anyone else who has sat in the Oval Office before him. And that process is currently underway.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. That's why you didn't hear that either over there on the news networks. All right. Well, Karoline Leavitt, what about the immigration thing? You know, I know that DHS has now said that if you're in the country illegally, you have to contact the Department of Homeland Security and register and give them your name. And I know that Democrats don't want that. Liberal groups don't want that. No, they want people in this country who are completely anonymous and doing God knows what in this country because they don't respect border laws or immigration laws or national security laws. But the judges, they spanked you, right? The judges said you couldn't do that, right? Oh, no, actually, a judge just sided with the Trump administration. Of course you can do that. What have you got to say for that, Karoline Leavitt?
The deadline for registration under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both. As President Trump and Secretary Noem have both said, if you register and you leave now, you choose to self-deport, you may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if not, you will be arrested, fined, deported, never to return to our country again.
It's funny, when Trump was running for office and he said, yeah, we're going to do a mass deportation here and people who are in this country illegally are not welcome. They can't stay and we're going to get rid of them. And how are you going to do that? You're going to go door to door. You're going to round people up. You can't do that. Let me tell you something. We're 75 days into this presidency, almost 80 days into this presidency. Enough video footage put out on social media and on broadcasting cable news of these dirtbag terrorist gang member murderers with their heads shaved, perp walked onto an airplane and put into a penitentiary in El Salvador. Enough shots of Tom Homan and his team busting in on a bunch of drug dealing gang members and rounding them up and perp walking them right onto the next plane out of this country. And then the announcement that if you do not register and you don't let us know who you are subject to a fine, imprisonment, and deportation. Let's get going now. We will send you out, or you can go out on your own accord. And if you go out on your own accord, you have a chance to come back to this country legally someday. But if we catch you and we deport you, that's it. It's over. You just watch. It's going to be amazing how many people self-deport and get out of here, especially when the federal benefits are cut off, which they will be cut off as well. Yeah, things are going pretty well right now with this administration, and I'm just scratching the surface on today's press briefing. We've got a little bit more with Karoline Leavitt and your calls, by the way, since I've had plenty to say for the first half of this program. So we want to get to your calls. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever's on your mind. 877-381-3811. My name's Larry O'Connor. This is the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I'm not filling in. I'm not guest hosting. Nobody can replace Mark Levin. As you know, I'm just sitting. I'm just sitting in, keeping it warm, trying not to break the show. Which I'll be honest with you, if you'd like a reason to listen to the rest of the program, it could happen at any moment. I'm just that volatile. I could break this show, and there will be no repairing it until Mark gets back. Larry O'Connor sitting at 877-381-3811. I'm going to take your calls in the next half hour. So if you're on hold now, stay there. I'll get to you, and I apologize. Here's the problem. You're thinking all day. I do a morning show. I haven't been on the air since 9 a.m. You're thinking all day about all these things going on. It's like you can't wait to talk. You can't wait to get to it. And so I'm filling in for Levin, and I'm like, blah. I'm going to throw it all out there for you. So we will take your calls next. I see you all waiting, Tom and Sandra and David and Jason and Martin, and we'll get to you. I just laid out quite a bit from the press conference today. Most of it was Karoline Leavitt's statements. She's great working with the questions and the answers too, but most of the questions are idiotic. So I didn't really want to waste time on that. One other item of note, though, today that I think could make a huge difference in your lives. And you need to understand exactly where we're headed here. Yesterday on Capitol Hill, the Senate debated a bill put forth by Senator Ted Cruz, good man out of Texas, to end daylight savings time, to lock it in, no more changing the clocks, no more spring forward, fall back. Enough is enough. Now, I think most people like that idea. Where we end up having a pretty heated debate is which version of time do we agree on? Do we stick with where we are right now, which is called daylight savings time, which means the sun stays out longer into the evening? My instinct, and this is against my own interests, by the way, and I'll explain that in a moment, but my instinct is to stick with that. But there are many people who say, no, that makes it too dark in the morning. And that's not good for children as they're waiting for the school bus. It's not good for children when they're walking to school. You don't want it that day. It's not good for children and other people who work in agriculture and work on farms. You don't want the sun to be that delayed in rising. And I'm sensitive to that. I am. But I also become that guy who says, what are you talking about? When I was a kid, I would walk to the school bus in Detroit. The suburbs of Detroit, in snow, and it was dark out, and I liked it. Man, it was good for me. I don't want to be that guy. And let me face it, as I said, I do morning radio, which means I'm used to being up when it's dark. I hate going to bed in the summertime while the sun is still up, but to be able to wake up in the morning to do a morning show, that's what I have to do. So this is being debated. The Senate had a hearing, but here's the news. 2 hours ago, President Trump on Truth Social. The House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of the day. Very popular, and most importantly, no more changing of the clocks. A big inconvenience, and for our government, a very costly event. And he initialed it DJT, which means he personally put out that truth. Trump is now advocating to end changing your clocks and lock in our time as it is right now on what is currently called daylight savings time. But if the president has his way and he's able to exercise his will in the House of Representatives, we will no longer call this daylight savings time. We will call this time. That's right. Donald Trump right now has so much power as the head of the executive branch of this government, and he has been able to figure out a way to exercise his executive powers within the confines of the Constitution to such an incredible level. He has not only done all of the things you've already seen him do in these first 75 days, But he is now advocating, through legislation, mind you, to be able to exercise his presidential powers to make time stand still. The sort of. At least to stop changing. You get the point. 877-381-3811. Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
This is the show the New York Times is afraid of. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin. I'm on X and Facebook, and too many links to tell you about. Go to LarryVIP.com. LarryVIP.com. You'll get free newsletters. You'll get free links to the podcasts every day in your inbox. And buy my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It's available in all formats, including audiobook. I narrate it. Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media, Made Them Irrelevant. By the way, I got an endorsement for the book by Mark Levin. He was kind enough, generous enough to endorse the book. His write-up is on the back of the book. Get it. Check it out. If you hate the media as much as I do, you'll love the book. Also, check out Mark Levin this weekend, Saturday, tomorrow's show. Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser on Life, Liberty, and Levin. That's tomorrow night, Saturday, 8 p.m. on Fox. And then Sunday is Charles Payne and retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton. That's Life, Liberty, and Levin on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, I got so much off my chest here, and I did this last time. I talked for 2.5 hours because I had so much I wanted to say, and I didn't take calls. And that's the whole point of talk radio. We're the original social media. This is why I love talk radio. And by the way, listen, I started the show by sort of, trying the distinction between podcasts and talk radio. And again, I love podcasts. I started podcasting my career with Andrew Breitbart back in 2009. I was doing a podcast before a lot of people knew how to podcast. I always wanted to get on radio because radio is legit. Radio, again, I want to reiterate, it literally, and this is not a criticism. It's just a fact. Anybody can start a podcast. I mean, for crying out loud, Michelle Obama has started like 5 different failed podcasts already. And they keep throwing money at her to do a new podcast. No one cares. Meghan Markle, ditto. It's like, okay, go ahead, do another podcast. But talk radio. See, there are a limited number of radio stations, a limited number of frequencies. There's a limited number of shows on those stations. And we go for hours. And we not only have our own credibility and reputation that we have to uphold, but all of the people we work with and the companies that we work with that have these licenses. And there's higher stakes. There's more involved in talk radio. And that's why I love doing my show on WMAL in Washington, D.C. I chose broadcasting and stayed in broadcasting because talk radio matters. Always has. Always will. Through it all. Trust me. Talk radio is going to be there. We'll be the last ones to turn out the lights when no one's listening to radio anymore. And that's why the Mark Levin Show is the one and only show you need to listen to. The rest of us all just try to match what he does. And I'm so honored to fill in. But the point is, what makes talk radio so great is you. It's you. This was the first format where you could pick up the phone and tell the person who has the microphone that they're wrong. or that they're great and you want to agree with them and add more to the conversation. Try that with Wolf Blitzer. I bet throughout the course of the day, there's plenty of people you see on television, friend and foe, that you would love to talk back to. You probably do talk back to them, but nobody hears you. Well, here, you'll be heard. And that's what will always make talk radio unique. In most podcasts, you cannot do that. If you are listening to callers on podcasts, it's after the fact. It's not live. It's not immediate, generally speaking, most of the time. We are the original social media. And that's why talk radio matters so much. 877-381-3811. Let's hear from you now. Let's start with, I like Martin, St. Petersburg, Florida. Martin, you're first up here on the Mark Levin Show.
Wow, that's an honor. Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate that. I got two things really quick. I'm calling you as a naturalized Venezuelan-born American citizen.
God bless you. I'm so glad you got out of that country. Oh.
I came here as a baby legally. My mom brought me from actually I ended up a baby without a country because we got some weird laws in Peru. So somehow I ended up in America legally. And
by the way, Martin, because I don't want that to hang out there. The Venezuela that you were born in, or the Venezuela that your family came to, that was a different country. And actually, Venezuela is a beautiful country. What the communists did to that country, what Chavez did to that country, that's the country I meant to celebrate that you escaped from, because as all communists countries end up proving, all their wonderful dreams end up with people starving on the streets and blood flowing down those streets. And I'm so glad you're an American. All right, I'm sorry, Martin. Your turn. Go ahead.
No, that's quite all right. But I never wanted America to turn into Venezuela. I got my citizenship on my own. The day I turned 18, I applied for it because my mother would never get around to it. And there's one thing that all these Democrats on the left, they keep pushing that you need an ID. Yeah, I've had to show that specific precious piece of paper. It's my naturalization certificate, and anybody that's gone through the process, which is worthwhile to go through, will keep that piece of paper safe. But I've had to use it to go get concealed carry permits because they wanted more than just my word for it that I was an American citizen. I wasn't outraged. I'm glad that they do it. Mm-hmm. I had to do that to go work aboard a NASA facility because they didn't want my word for it, but I was glad to do it. We can present that. That's not an issue. And I do have one more thing that I want to put out here, just because.
Well, hold on. I want to get to that in a second, but I just let's do a little exchange here, because I'm fascinated here, given your story and given your experience. When you hear a Democrat, when you see a Democrat or a media personality get on television and say, no, it's wrong, we shouldn't demand proof of citizenship for the vote, considering what you went through to earn the right to vote in this country, and now they want to treat it like it's meaningless, like there's no value to it at all, less value than food stamps, right? Because you have to prove you're a citizen to get food stamps. What's your response to them? What's your response to the Hakeem Jeffries of the world and the Tim Walzes of the world who think that you're the problem because you agree that you need to prove you're a citizen?
My response to them, as someone who not only earned his citizenship, served in the armed forces, went to the Iraq War as a bomb technician, I had to earn my red and white stripes. I don't want to see America turn into Venezuela. I went to war with the same people, the same battalion. I met those people from Minnesota that Tim Walz up and left. I heard about that story. I thought that was messed up that those people got extended 18 months. And then here we are almost 20 years later. I looked that up, and it's like it was that same group of people. Cowardly. But there is one thing I do want to put out here.
Go ahead, Mark.
I've been trying to do this through Joey Jones. I've been trying to do this through the next congressman down south. I'm sorry, for some reason I'm just drawing a blank. There is something that a sitting president has never done as part of our special community. I'm a former Army bomb disposal technician, explosive ordnance disposal, and I know that President Trump sometimes listens to this show, but we have never had a sitting president ever show up to our EOD memorial, and that's the first Saturday in May. And I hope that somehow this comes back to him. Joey Jones should be asking him. I don't know why I cannot think of my. Well,
I'll tell you what. No, it's all right, Martin, and God bless you, and thank you for your service, especially EOD. I'll tell you what. Have you heard of a gentleman named Hung Kao?
Yes, I was rooting for him the whole time. He is the undersecretary of the Navy.
Hung Kao was the
highest that any one of us ever made it.
He was the Republican nominee for Senate in Virginia. He is a retired captain of the of the United States Navy. He went to the Naval Academy. He was an EOD officer, and he's now been named the Deputy Secretary of the Navy. In fact, he's going to get sworn in. I believe he's getting sworn in on the anniversary of the last helicopter that left Vietnam. And, of course, he became a Vietnamese refugee, came to this country, became a naturalized citizen, went to the Naval Academy, lived the American dream. He's EOD. And I know Hung Kao. I got to know him pretty well for his run for Virginia Senate. I'm gonna notify him of this. I don't know. The president's schedule is insane, especially this short of a time frame. But I'm going to let him know. And if anybody can make that happen, Martin, it's Hung Kao, your brother EOD.
Larry, you just made my whole month.
Well, I'm not making promises. I just know it'll get in front of the president, then we'll see what happens. But knowing this president, knowing this commander-in-chief, if he can do it, he's going to do it. Martin, thank you for that. Thanks for the call, and thank you for your service. And it's a great way to kick things off here for our calls. Dang. How about Tony, Silver Spring, Maryland? Oh, right in our backyard here. You can probably see the radio station I'm on WMAL from your window, Tony. Thanks for calling in.
Well, I wish I could. Face east, I don't know what direction your place is from mine, but anyway, I'm going to take issue with the majority of the population. I want to keep daylight savings for the following reason. In spring, things are warming up. I'm excited about life. I can afford to lose an hour. And that's an investment for the fall when things start getting gloomy. I get that extra hour. It's an investment, and I like it.
Well, that's one way to look at it, Tony. Hold on. So not to be grim here or anything, I don't want to make it personal. Let's say there's another person just like you. His name is, let's say, Luigi. And Luigi has the same idea. He's like, yeah, I'll invest. I'll lose my hour now because I know I'm going to get it back. And then what happens if the day before he gets that hour back in the fall? What happens if Luigi isn't watching which way he's crossing in front of the Red Line metro station in Silver Springs? And, one of these crazy drivers in Washington, probably Jamie Raskin, your congressman there in Silver Springs, he just plows through a red light and runs over Luigi and he drops dead and he never gets his hour back, Tony. What do you say to him? He made the investment, never got his hour back, Tony.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could probably come up with a scenario that does the same thing the other way. I will confess.
Think of Luigi.
Maybe I'm like that bird who lives his whole life in a cage, and when the owner takes him outside and opens the door, he flies around and comes right back because that's what he's used to. I don't know.
I think you're a creature of habit, my friend. All right, here's the thing, Tony. Thank you for the call. The funny thing about the whole deal is it's all sort of a false construct, isn't it? I mean, time is somewhat relative, and you know that when you know. Imagine if you lived like right on the border between Eastern time and Central time, and at any given moment or day, you have to drive across that time zone to go to the Walmart over in that neighboring state, right? And then you come back home, and it's like, gain an hour, lost an hour, gain an hour. What does it all mean? I don't think you should really think about it as banking your hour and then cashing it in later in the fall. The whole point is we settle on a time. The only point is, do you want more sunlight at night or not? But we don't need to change the clocks anymore. I don't see why we have to. Other than if you're like Tony and you're a creature of habit. Although Think of Luigi. In fact, we should call the bill the Think of Luigi in the hour he'll never get back bill or something. More of your calls, 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor, sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting for the... Wow. I'm a professional talker. Let me use my language again. I'm Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I was so excited to say that I was sitting in for Mark Levin that I sort of, 877-381-3811. We're plowing through your calls right now as we reset for some new topics on the table. Topics du jour, we like to say, if we get continental. How about Jason in the D.C. area? Jason is on the Mark Levin Show. Hey, Jason, I'm Larry.
Hey, Larry. How you going, mate?
It's Jason from Down Under. Hey, Jason, thanks for calling in.
Hey, no worries, mate. How you going? Yeah, this tariff thing, I mean, they've been kicking this can down the road for about 30 years. It would have been a lot easier back in the 90s before they put the China into the WTO. They could have dealt with them. I mean, they invited them in, even though they had, major human rights violations, yet they still let them into the WTO, and now it's a lot harder to deal with, but you got to start somewhere. And of course, Trump stepped up, and all of a sudden they don't like the idea. But it's funny, they're on video saying the exact same thing he's been saying for the last number of years.
Yep. Yeah, they are, Jason, and you're so right to say that this was projected, this was predicted. When they let China into the World Trade Organization, they were so greedy at the time for the cheap manufacturing. And I listen, I'm sensitive to this. I recognize it. Everyone's, I'm going to pay more for my iPhone. I'm going to pay more for my, my underwear from Walmart. Okay. You might. Actually, let's face reality. You might. But guess what? And I hate to be that guy, but you've had a pretty cheap way of going right now with your underwear and your socks at Walmart and your iPhones or what have you. And it's been cheap because, you've participated in exploiting slave labor. Yeah, it's legal. It's legal. But is it moral? I mean, the fact of the matter is China's been able to manufacture these things. And as China manufactures those things, those are jobs that we don't have. And they've been able to manufacture these things with people who are, in many cases, literally imprisoned. I think anyone who lives in a communist country is in prison. But these are literally people in prison. Do you see that? Is that marked on your cheap socks for Walmart? I don't think so. I'm sorry for targeting Walmart. It's just they get a lot of stuff from China. And they knew this, Jason, but they were so greedy, and they just said, we'll work it out. But the fact is, World Trade Organization has so many rules and so many regulations that if you see, everybody knows that China's cheating, but it's nearly impossible to deal with them and do anything about it, except for exactly the way Trump did it, Jason. That's the brilliance of this.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job isolating them. He sort of put across the board tariffs just to sort of make it look like he was being fair to every country, but then... And it was always about China. and I've managed to isolate.
It's always about China. You're right. And one other thing, Jason, and Karoline Leavitt said it today. I want you to hear her say it because she sort of echoed your remarks.
The tariff rate on China remains where it was yesterday, at the 145% level. The president made it very clear when the United States is punched, he will punch back harder. And he hopes to make a deal that benefits the American worker and our companies that have been ripped off for far too long. And he's finally taking bold and courageous action to do that. Taking on China is, in the terms of trade and tariffs, is something that both Democrats and Republicans alike have spoken about for decades. President Trump is finally doing it.
That's the bottom line. And nobody, no Democrat, no Republican, no communist, and no shameless liar in the media can deny that reality. That's the fact, Jack. Larry O'Connor here. It's the Mark Levin Show.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name is Larry O'Connor, and I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, who is joining his family to begin his observation of the joyful Passover celebration. And for all of my friends who are Jewish, well, you might not be listening right now because you're enjoying Passover, unless you're on the West Coast, right? In L.A. on the great KRLA 870 AM. Love that station. Listen, if you guys are embarking upon your Passover festivities tonight, God bless you. Shabbat Shalom. It's great. We love it. It's thrilling. Also, to all my Christian brothers and sisters, how great is it? Palm Sunday is 48 hours away. This is our Holy Week now that we're about to jump into. It's been quite a Lent. If you're living like I've been living, it's been quite a Lent, but we're almost there, baby. And I love it when our two major religions in this country, when our major holidays overlap like this, as they did the first time around, right? That's very cool. Not exactly synced up the way they were the first time around, but you know what I'm saying. So a good one to all of you. If you do want to get your Mark Levin fix, check out tomorrow night's Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. He's got Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser. And then on Sunday, same time, same place, Fox News, 8 p.m. Eastern, Life, Liberty, and Levin will feature Charles Payne and retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton. All right, so that's all your Mark Levin info because I need my fix too. So let's check out Life, Liberty, and Levin. If you want to know who I am, I'm a radio talk show host out of Washington, D.C. I'm WMAL. That's the mightiest talk radio station in the nation. No offense to the one you're listening to right now, but, we're in Washington. It's like a different thing. I do the morning show there. If you want more information on me, my podcast, my streaming show, my book that I've written, go to LarryVIP.com, LarryVIP.com. You'll get all the information and a chance to get a free book. The book is called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It was #1 on Amazon's political list when it first came out. It's all about the media coverage of the 2024 presidential election, all the lies they told, and how Trump beat them all. Check that out, will you? We started the day, this program, I should say, not the day, but we started the Mark Levin Show with a breaking story that hit right around 4:15 this afternoon. If you have not heard this news, it's important. Take a listen.
The decision that we have been waiting for, a judge has just ruled that the Trump administration's effort to deport Mahmoud Khalil can move forward. Correspondent Brooke Taylor, live right near that courthouse in Jena, Louisiana. Tell us what the judge is saying in there, Brooke.
Hi, Martha. Yeah, this has been long anticipated and some major news. Just to first give you some perspective, we're down the street from that ICE detention center. The courtroom is inside of there. They didn't allow any phones or cameras. So we're finding out this information from our reporter who's over there down the street. She tells us, as you just mentioned, the immigration judge has found Mahmoud Khalil removable. Khalil's attorneys have until April 23rd to file relief applications. I asked that reporter reporter what the immigration judge was able to say. She cited those DHS papers and said that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was able to meet that burden. And again, they have decided that Mahmoud Khalil is removable. The next question, Martha, of course, his attorneys are going to fight this, but how long that process is going to take right now for him to be deported. We'll send it back to you.
All right. Breaking news. Brooke, thank you.
Yeah, thank you indeed. Of course he can be deported. Everybody knows that. You've been listening to this show. You've been listening to Mark Levin. Of course, you know the law. Of course, this is legal and he can be deported. I didn't catch it. I wasn't listening intently. I'm sure on CNN, MSNBC, the broadcast networks, David Muir, I'm sure they're describing this guy as college student, Mahmoud Khalil. He's just a college student. He's in his 30s, but he's a college student. Came here. He's here on a student visa. Here's who the college student is. College student, when the pro-Hamas terrorists, and can I just remind you, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas is a terrorist organization who murdered over 1,000 innocent people at a music festival on October 7th. And that's not conjecture. That's not allegedly. They were proud of it. They live streamed it, these barbarians. They live streamed it. They were proud of it. They celebrate it. They still celebrate it. Murdered 1,000 people at this music festival, mostly Jews, mostly Israeli citizens, American citizens too, citizens of multiple nations, then took hostages, have terrorized them for a year and a half now. They still are hanging on to these terrorists, these hostages, these terrorists. So you got these protesters in Columbia University, and they're celebrating, they're running interference for it, they're defending, they're rationalizing these terrorists. And then, of course, they're funded by the same groups that are connected to these terrorists, it appears. And so, of course, they start behaving like terrorists themselves. Now, they didn't slaughter people. They didn't rape. They didn't burn down. They didn't blow themselves up with suicide vests, but they took over private property. They defaced private property. They occupied private property that was not theirs. They took over the quad at Columbia University. They blockaded it. They would not allow Jewish students to walk peacefully by. They occupied a building on the campus, defaced the building, vandalized the building, would not allow people into it. So Columbia faculty, those who weren't on the side of the terrorists, of course, and Columbia administrators, they're trying to go to these wannabe Hamas on their campus, and they say, this has to stop. You've got to get out. You can't stay here any longer, and you got to get out of the building. That's not your building. We got to do business here. We got classes here, and you've ruined it. Get out. And so then a negotiation takes place, because that's what terrorists do. They break the law. They terrorize. They take things that aren't theirs. They hold hostages. In this case, they're holding a building hostage. And in a way, they're holding the other students hostage because they won't allow them into the building that they're allowed to go into. So they're, instead of holding them and keeping them in, they're keeping them out. And so there's a, well, now we shall negotiate. We shall negotiate so that our demands can be met, because they've created their own position of leverage, right? They have nothing. They don't deserve anything. So instead, they decide to create an imbalanced scenario where suddenly they think they have some position of power, so that the people who actually are righteously in power are forced to negotiate if they're stupid. But of course, we're talking about the administration at an Ivy League university, so they are stupid. So they go and they say, okay, let's negotiate. Let's negotiate. Send us your spokesperson. And who shows up? Mahmoud Khalil. Now, forgive me, but if you were in the position of speaking on behalf of and negotiating for criminal terrorists, you are, in fact, a criminal terrorist. He helped egg all of this on. And the Trump administration said, you're no longer welcome here. You're not a citizen. You were here through our benevolence, But as you know, when you came here on your student visa, and even when you gained semi-permanent status, but not citizenship, by marrying an American citizen, you still knew all this time that you were subject to deportation if you do certain things. One of those things, believe it or not, is siding with an enemy of this country. One of those things is consorting with criminals and engaging in criminal behavior. You do that, you get deported. You knew all along that this is what was going to happen because you listened to Mark Levin. I listened to Mark Levin. That's how I knew it was going to happen. And now the immigration judge has said, you betcha, Mahmoud Khalil, you're done. It should be noted that Democrats want Mahmoud Khalil to stay. In fact, the social media account for the Judiciary Committee in the House actually posted his picture on the X platform. I do love that they hate Elon Musk, but they sure do love using his social media platform. They have no principles at all. You know, some of us, when Twitter, the old Twitter, would censor people and keep people out, we actually, you know, we would boycott it. We would spend a month off of it or some of it. I mean, I remember Mark was gone. Mark left for months until Elon Musk bought it and brought it back. But these guys hate Elon Musk. They demonize everything he does. They cheerlead the people who are firebombing Tesla owners and Tesla dealerships. And yet they still love getting their retweets and their likes on Elon Musk's social media platform, the X. All right. So I'm watching the X now. I'm watching the X platform all evening since this story has been posted about Mahmoud Khalil, and the overriding response from most of the people in my universe and my orbit that I'm seeing on all of the posts about this, it's amazing to me that it's almost unanimous and it's almost in unison. The one reaction is, bye-bye. Mahmoud Khalil, judges determined that you can be deported. Our response, bye-bye. Bye. So long. Goodbye. Make it fast. Let's go. Here's my question. Will he settle in Gaza or on the West Bank? Now, I assure you, this guy is going to pick somewhere other than Gaza or the West Bank. He's going to go to Paris. He's going to go to London. London's about as jihadist as Gaza is these days. But he's going to go somewhere where he'll be celebrated by the Anglo-Western, predominantly Christian-influenced, but now secular leftist West. That's where he'll go. He will not go to a predominantly Muslim country. He will not go to the actual country that he has been championing. He is the fight the power, fight the Jews, fight the Zionists, fight the Israeli spokesperson for the Hamas-led Gaza Palestinian downtrodden refugee sufferers. And he won't go anywhere near them. They will deport him. They will get him out of this country. He will be able to go wherever he wants, and he's not going to. Why isn't he going to Gaza? Why would he not go to Gaza? Well, it's war-torn right now. Okay, go to the West Bank. There are no bombs dropping in the West Bank, dude. In fact, why didn't you go to the University of the West Bank in the first place? What the hell are you coming to Columbia for? We're the great Satan, man. Columbia? Wasn't that founded by the Brits? Used to be King's College. Columbia University used to be King's College, founded by the King of England, the head of the Church of England, a Christian institution. But Mahmoud Khalil, when he finally gets to go to graduate school, comes to Columbia. Not the Ivy League institutions there in the West Bank. That's weird, isn't it? It's amazing how all of these people who hate this country just can't wait to get here, and they don't want to leave. Well, I join all of my friends on the social media platforms, and I sing in unison with them our overriding message to Mahmoud Khalil now that the The process is complete, and an immigration judge has determined that it is completely within the rights of the Trump administration to deport you. Let us all say it together, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3, bye-bye. Coming up in a moment, we've got one more bye-bye. It's for a colonel in the Space Force who has been relieved of command. What she did to earn that dubious distinction, I will tell you, and I'm quite sure when I'm done with the story, you will join me in saying to this colonel, bye-bye. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We just told the story of Mahmoud Khalil, who will now be deported. Bye-bye. How about this one? Woke up this morning to the story of Colonel Susan Myers. Have you heard this? She was the commander of the 821st Space Base Group, overseeing the military base in Pituffik, Greenland. Well, here's what happened. Vice President J.D. Vance went to Greenland last week, you remember, and he delivered remarks. And in his remarks, he expressed concerns over the people of Greenland, their desire to have independence from Denmark, their desire to maybe have a better, secure, and beneficial relationship with perhaps a country other than Denmark. And he expressed the administration's position that the president has articulated multiple times, that the United States would love to better our relationship with and our security arrangements with the people of Greenland. And it seems like there are many people in Greenland who are open to that idea. Some people are not. It's a political situation. The point is, it's not something that Colonel Susan Myers, commander of the 821st Space Base Group of the Space Force in Pituffik, should be chiming in on one way or the other, because that's not her job. She's not in politics. But she just couldn't help herself. She sent out an email to everybody on the base saying that she spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you. I do not presume to understand current politics. She should have ended the sentence right there. She didn't, though. She said, I do not presume to understand current politics, but... Oh, boy, that's a big butt. That's like a Kardashian-sized butt. There's a big butt coming here, baby. But what I do know is the concerns of the U.S. administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Pituffik Space Base. Oh, really now? The concerns of the U.S. administration, that would be the commander-in-chief and chain of command for you, Colonel, are not reflective of your space base, the Pituffik Space Base. I commit that for as long as I'm lucky enough to lead this base, all of our flags will fly proudly together. That email was sent out to everybody at the base. She has been removed of command. The only statement is that commanders are expected to adhere to the highest standards of conduct, especially as it relates to remaining nonpartisan in the performance of their duties. She's no longer the CEO at that space base for the Space Force in Greenland, and I'm thinking maybe there's going to be other further ramifications for this. She may get a primetime show on MSNBC, but let me just say on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service, Colonel. We appreciate it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye and bye-bye. It's the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Don't ask him for middle ground. There is no middle ground. Talk with Mark Levin now at 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. Yes, 877-381-3811. We will have some time for some calls here in this back half hour. There are a couple other things I want to get to, though. Real fast, though, you want to check out Mark Levin. I know that you're disappointed that I'm sitting in for him tonight. I hear you. Mark is enjoying the Passover observance this weekend, but you can get your Levin fix with Life, Liberty, and Levin tomorrow night, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox News. Michael Pillsbury and Zuhdi Jasser are going to join him. Love Zuhdi Jasser, very courageous man looking for reform in the Muslim world. He's He's a very courageous man because he's got a lot of enemies there. Also on Sunday, Charles Payne and retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton joining Mark Levin on Life, Liberty, and Levin, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Fox News. I'm Larry O'Connor, radio talk show host. I'm a radio talk show host. Remember those? I'm not an influencer, by the way. What was with the influencers? I don't want to influence. I don't want to influence. Influencers are constantly chasing clicks, too. Here's what I want to do. I want to do a good, smart, informative, entertaining radio talk show. And have a relationship with you. And so we can come back and see each other on a regular basis and listen to each other. And you know, I've been doing that for like a decade and a half now. And it's great. And I love it. And I'm an influencer. Don't ever call me an influencer. Don't ever let me try to be an influencer. I don't want to be an influencer. Ever. And I've got a book out. It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It's all about the 2024 presidential election. It's all about the lies the media told, but most importantly, it's how Trump defeated it all, how he rose above it and made them irrelevant. A perfect example. Remember his 60 Minutes interview? You know, every presidential candidate has to go on 60 Minutes, right? I mean, that's just the rule. Everybody knows that. That's what conventional wisdom says. You want to be president? You want to be taken seriously? You got to sit for that 60 Minutes interview. I mean, Kamala did it, right? Yeah, he said, screw you, 60 Minutes. I don't need you. And 60 Minutes was going to take a 40-minute interview, edit it down to 20 minutes to just show their viewers what they wanted their viewers to see. Because, of course, people who run the media, they think so little of you. I do love that you got to worry about the short attention span that the viewers have. Really? It's funny. Mark Levin has a 3-hour radio show from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, and he's been doing it for, 25 years now? Rush Limbaugh dominated the media, dominated political conversations for over 30 years in this country, in the middle of the day, mostly with monologues, rarely with guests and interviews. Tell me again how Americans have short attention spans? In fact, Donald Trump, instead of doing the 40-minute conversation that got edited down to 20 minutes so that 60 Minutes could control what you got to see, instead he went and sat with Joe Rogan for over 3 hours, and it racked up over 50 million views. We have a short attention span, CBS? We have a short attention span, CNN? No, your content sucks. That's why we changed that. Well, they're constantly changing the channel every few minutes. They have a short attention span. No, your content sucks. Stop demeaning us. Stop talking down to us. Stop reducing us to the low and common denominator that you live with every day when you look at whoever's staring back at you above your bathroom sink. That's you, not me. Our attention span is just fine. We conservative Americans, we've been dwelling in long-form talk radio monologues and interviews for decades. Y'all called us names. You thought we were stupid. AM radio, who gives a crap about that, right? But look who we are. Look what we're doing. Look what we've been doing. No worries here about a short attention span, pal. It tells you everything you need to know about not only who they are and how they run their operations, but also who they're appealing to. So Donald Trump says, screw you, 60 Minutes, screw you, CBS News, and he goes and sits with Joe Rogan for 3+ hours, racks up 50 million views. He wins the election. Kamala Harris couldn't bring herself to that interview. And, of course, 60 Minutes did give her the big assist by leaving half of her word salad down on the cutting room floor. She still looked like a moron. She lost the election. Trump didn't just beat Kamala Harris, and he didn't just beat Joe Biden. He beat the media. It was an incredible thing to witness. Has any president done this? A presidential candidate survived the indictments, survived the FBI raid to his home and the indignity that went along with that. Survived states trying to keep him off the ballot because they didn't trust their own voters. He survived an assassination attempt. 2 of them that we know about. He defeated a sitting incumbent president who waved the white flag after one debate and said, I don't want any more of this guy. I'm out. So instead, They nominate the history-making first woman of color to run for president, and she gets nothing but pristine, perfect, monopolized media coverage on the news media and in the pop culture, on the late-night shows, in the movies, in the music industry, academia. She only has to run for 100 days, so there's no time for any negative coverage. That was the plan. Just jam her through. He goes to a debate where the network ABC News broke the rules in real time of the debate, and they acknowledge they broke the rules, pretending to fact check Donald Trump, and their fact checks were erroneous. And everyone in the media said, oh, Trump won this. Kamala won the debate hands down. It wasn't even close. It's over for Trump. He's dead because Kamala won the debate. But it's funny because the American people didn't think that. In fact, his polls went up after the debate. And by the way, last time I checked, you don't win the White House if you do well at a debate. He defeated Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. In the same election cycle, she outspent him to an extraordinary level. Everyone talks about billionaires backing Donald Trump. Did you know that billionaires, on a scale of 2 to 1, I believe, backed Kamala Harris over Donald Trump? No billionaires buying the White House for anybody. Donald Trump beat all of that. And then the best part of it, it's the prologue of my book. It's what I start with in my book. On December 17th, when he was president-elect, before he was sworn into office, it was announced that Donald Trump had won a defamation settlement with ABC News and with George Stephanopoulos to the tune of $16 million, $1 million out of George's pocket. Because George Stephanopoulos on This Week, the Sunday show, continuously lied about Donald Trump and the judgment against him in the E. Jean Carroll case. He lied over and over and over again, and he lied knowingly and he lied willingly because he had reported the story differently in other platforms. He knew the facts of the judgment, but he lied on that platform because he's not a journalist. And he wasn't interested in the truth, and he wasn't interested in information. He was interested in using his platform, ABC News, owned by Disney. Choose wisely with your entertainment dollar. He used that platform to lie about Donald Trump because he wanted his team to win. What's his team? Well, you know his team. He's George Stephanopoulos. He literally worked for Bill Clinton. He's literally worked for the Clinton Global Initiative by emceeing their panel discussions and donating money to the group. He is a Democrat activist. He's not a news host. He's not a journalist. He's not a reporter. He's a Democrat activist, and Disney gives him 2 platforms, the Good Morning America show every single morning and then the Sunday show. It's a hell of a gig. And he knowingly lied about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump fought. Donald Trump did what Republicans never do. He said, you lie about me? You lie about me? I'm going to sue you for defamation. And Disney settled. George Stephanopoulos settled to the tune of $16 million. It's why that is the launching point of my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant, because he defeated Joe Biden. Joe Biden surrendered. Joe Biden couldn't take any more of Donald Trump after that debate. He defeated Kamala Harris. He survived an assassination attempt. He defeated all of the court cases against him that were trumped up. There's some that are still pending appeal. He'll win those. And then he defeated the media. And we've never seen anything like it. And the media will never be the same. And they still haven't learned. You've seen it this past week, their coverage of the tariffs. They have not learned a damn thing. And when you tune into the cable shows, when you tune in to Meet the Press this Sunday, which you won't do because you're too smart for that, but if you did, you would see interviews with people from the administration and interviews with congressmen or senators, and Kristen Welker will be the host. And then at the end, they'll do their panel discussion, a round table. And it will be Trump hater and Trump hater. And I'm going around the table right now. Trump hater, Trump hater, Trump hater, Trump hater, Republican who hates Trump, Trump hater, Trump hater, Trump hater. Ask yourself something. On the major networks, on CBS, NBC, and ABC, can you name one pro-Trump Republican analyst who is brought in to give his opinion or her opinion on the news of the day or the week, either on the Sunday shows or on the evening news? One pro-Trump Republican analyst who is actually on the payroll of those three major networks. I can't name one. They got plenty of Republican analysts who hate Trump. Chris Christie, I think, on ABC is on the payroll. I'm pretty sure Steve Hayes is on the payroll over there at NBC News. Can you name one who is in support of this administration? Ask yourself something. You're running a major media network. You're one of the three top network news divisions in America, and you're presenting news and analysis every single night on the evening news and every single Sunday morning on your Sunday show. And you don't have one voice on the payroll who actually speaks on behalf of over half of the people in this country. Are you in the business of news? Are you in the business of informing your viewers? You are not. I don't know what business you're in, but you're not in the news business. And ditto for MSNBC, ditto for CNN. CNN's got Scott Jennings is great. Love him. He's not on enough. He should have his own show. And David Urban is great. I think he's on the payroll there. Other than that, nobody else on the payroll there. Remarkable, isn't it? It's why I wrote this book. I wanted to chronicle everything that happened in this presidential election. It was extraordinary. All of it. Including what they didn't report about Joe Biden's condition. The cover-up of Joe Biden. Still the single greatest scandal in American political and media history. I love that they've got these books out now. These books are coming out. Jake Tapper wrote one. Jonathan Allen's got one out with Amy Parnes that they wrote about apparently Joe Biden was not physically or mentally capable to be president. We're just learning this now. Now it can be told. These are journalists who wrote these books. They literally covered the president in real time while it was going on, and they didn't see that story when it happened? Only now when they can cash in with a book, when he's safely out of office. We deserve a better media. America deserves a more intelligent, more effective, and more honest media. That's what I hope to achieve with this book, to tell you exactly what they did. Check it out. It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media, Made Them Irrelevant. You can get a hardcover, paperback, or audiobook. I narrate it in my voice. The one you hear right now, this one. This one right here. More to come. Some of your calls coming up next. 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
It's Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin here on the Mark Levin Show. Thanks for tuning in today. And I do want to jump to your calls here. We talked about the fact that the president has now come out in favor of locking in the clock. Lock in the clock, no more time change, and he favors sticking with daylight savings time, the time we're in right now. He wants there to be more sun later in the evening throughout the year. And I want to take your call because we have so Dan in Chicago. Listen to the great WLS. That's my brother lives in Evanston, Dan, with all the liberals. He's listening on WLS as well. Dan, help us out here. Where do you stand on the daylight savings thing?
Hey, I've always said for a long time the people that hated George W. Bush loved him because he pushed daylight savings time back an extra week for the Halloween kids, and he moved it up early. And now all the liberals can love Donald because now they'll get the extra daylight savings time and they don't have to screw around with it, and they'll get the extra daylight at night. So I personally think they should. So
it's a win-win. And so you're right. I remember when Bush extended it, but it all started with, was it Roosevelt that actually made it finally official? I know that we flirted with it over the years.
I don't know, but if we're not going to change the clocks, we lived for thousands of years leaving it the way it is, because the farther you live up north in Minnesota, And in Canada, it's going to be dark at 9 o'clock in the morning if we leave it turned up in the middle of the winter. So, but I do get it. It's nice to have the extra light at night. I don't care it's going to be what it's going to be, but I love when you fill in. Someone said the other day they love the music on hold. It is awesome, and I've been amening you all through the last segment. Couldn't agree with you more.
Hey, thanks, brother.
Played. All right, okay. And I'm
appreciate that. That's Dad in Chicago. Yeah, the music on hold. It's the same music I hear during when your local station goes to a break. There's no breaks. We're still here, and it is great music, 100%. All right, how about Tom in the D.C. area? Tom, you're next up here on the Mark Levin Show. What do you say?
Well, you've had a number of subject changes. First, the reason I called in goes way back to the idea of this student being sent home because of being basically provoking all this pro-Hamas stuff on the campus.
Yeah, the terrorist sympathizer, Mahmoud Khalil. Yeah.
So, the whole by the fake media, as we've been discussing, as you've been talking about the whole time, they say, she's being kicked out for having participated. No, she was a key organizer. She lied on her documentation. She came here for the express purpose of pushing this kind of ideology. And
Amen.
What's amazing to me is this seems to be an Anglo thing. The Anglo countries, Germany, UK, France too, and in Belgium, they allow this to go on. Finally, under Donald Trump, not. Donald Trump is acting more like
it's a liberal thing. You're calling it Anglo. I mean, it is Western European, but they're liberal as well. And it is. But absolutely, they take advantages of us. They take advantage of our goodwill, and they exploit us. And Tom, it's a great point, and I appreciate. I wish we had more time, but thank you for bringing it up. That's it for this Friday evening. If you're observing Passover, have a blessed one. My Christian brothers and sisters, have a great Palm Sunday and a great.